All right, welcome everyone to the weekly prep. I'm just kind of recapping a lot of the details and news that are dropping today on the StocksToTrade X account. Be sure to give us a follow. It's all spelled out, StocksToTrade. Running through the news, I see USDA is going to use $5.25 billion in emergency funds to partially cover November SNAP benefits. So going to be a lot of delays in payments, etc. It's kind of going down to the states, but keep an eye on that. Really kind of related to a lot of the food, grocery store plays. You know, Walmart's kind of been getting pounded down recently on that news. If we see that money start to flow, could start to see a bounce on Walmart. Was trending up for quite some time, you know, into the start of the month. You know, nice rip out of this breakout of the range. Actually, I talked about this one on Schwab TV, I think about 2-3 weeks ago. Definitely, you know, give Schwab TV a follow too. Hey, but I'm talking about this one on the 100 break back a few weeks ago. That's that century rule, we call it in real stocks. Stocks that break the century mark, the $100 level, tend to continue through. You can see that once it broke out up to 109. But then you can also see that selling pressure that came once the talk of the SNAP and EBT basically funding shortfall, I guess you would call it. You can kind of see that represented on the chart over the previous 2-3 weeks. So that being said, keep an eye on that headline. It could see a kind of a bounce back to that upper resistance level on Walmart. Another bit of news, KVU bought out by Kimberly-Clark. KVU, they have a lot of different products, but they're kind of most well known for Tylenol is the main brand. A lot of eyes on this, you know, with these acquisition plays. The biggest reason I bring it up is people are always wondering, is there a real way to play this? Not really. You know, you might be here like, hey, we want some actionable ideas. But I tell you, all day today, people are like, KVU. And I'm like, it's a buyout, guys. Probably it's going to gap up to the buyout price and go sideways. And that's why I bring it up. This morning in pre-market, I mean, I almost said 100. I doubt it was 100 times I got asked, but it was probably 20 or 30. I mean, 100, it felt like 100. How's that sound? And you can see, as discussed in pre-market, just kind of sideways at the acquisition price. So keep that in mind next time you see one of these buyouts. Nvidia, you know, just continues to crush it. My favorite headline over the weekend was Jensen Huang commenting on the fact that 9 months ago, President Trump challenged him to do something that everyone but me, was saying couldn't be done. Everyone for literally decades said, you know, semiconductors could not be manufactured in the US, especially the most advanced semiconductors. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys remember going back to the pandemic, the auto shortages. There's so many hilarious things about the pandemic, but one of my favorite was like Mercedes was shipping cars that the heated seats didn't work in. You had to wait for a chip to plug in to make the heated seats work. Like all this ridiculousness. And that was the low priced kind of commercial or commodity grade semiconductors, like just a controller chip that turns on heated seats. People said those couldn't be manufactured in the US, much less, you know, the most advanced in the history of the world, Nvidia's chips. And sure enough, you know, Jensen Huang over the weekend was talking about, we did it. We're making them in Arizona. It wasn't that hard. All we had to do was have the political backing and the political will to bring all of this manufacturing back to the US. And it's another reason why I continue to stay bullish Nvidia. This was my favorite pick on another Schwab TV appearance back in July when everyone was saying the AI sector was overblown, due for a pullback. I was like, buy Nvidia straight up since then. And now with this US manufacturing, definitely I think that's setting up another bullish leg for Nvidia as well as Intel, AMD. I mean, all the chip makers, they're all bringing it to the US, and it's going to be great for the country. It's going to be great for technology. It's going to be great for the economy, and it's going to be great for the stocks. MSPR this morning. So this one, actually, let me grab this link here was the number one play from the Oracle signal this morning. Kind of a slower day overall in penny stocks, as we say, but MSPR hit the entry of 75 cents and went to $1.09. Micro float stock, you can see under 1 million float. Crazy volume, by the way. I mean, what is the current volume on MSPR? Here we are. I'm recording at 1:13 p.m. 782 million shares traded on the day. So basically, probably going to trade at least a billion, most likely going to go over a billion shares. And I want you to keep an eye on that. Lately, kind of the last tail end of last week into this week, so many of these, massive volume true penny stocks. We've seen it. I mean, this isn't unique. We had a couple of them last week traded around a billion shares. A lot of money flowing into these true pennies. Now, what people always ask is, it's difficult to chart these because, you look at the long-term charts, they're just disasters. They all look like MSPR. So people always ask, how do you actually execute a trade? And it's a great question. And obviously I'm biased. I created the Oracle algorithm. I use it every day. But many of you know, many of you have heard me say it hundreds, thousands of times. I'm like, when it comes to the true pennies that you can't really do technical analysis on because all of the charts are fundamentally broken, use an algo that has all of these technical indicators, price action indicators to basically build that trade plan for you. And that being said, MSPR, 75 cents to $1.09, just a beautiful play. Kind of going through other of interest, Amazon up another 4%, now 5% this morning. Just it's what's wild is, I'm sure all of you know about the AWS outages we've had. We had a really bad one a couple weeks ago. There was a minor one last week, but this stock just continues to shrug it off. And it's because, at this point, the internet basically runs on Amazon and AWS. So even with the outages, you just see this stock just continue. Look at that gap up on earnings last week and then another gap up today. Now I know a lot of you might be looking at this, a lot of you that are, day traders, mostly focus on penny stocks, and you're like 5%, Tim, what's the big deal? Guys, this is a $3 trillion market cap stock that added 5% to its market cap after earnings last week and another 5% today. That is not insignificant. You're talking, billions and billions of dollars being added to this company on a daily basis, and people are still buying the stock. So when you hear that, AI bubble, whether it be the Nvidias or the Amazons or the Googles, etc. My favorite quote, I've used it a lot lately, all these people calling bubble, a bubble is just a bull market you're not participating in. All of these people you see saying bubble, 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 guess what? They aren't long the stocks. It's just hateful little creatures that live in their mom's basement that can't recognize the greatest technology in the history of mankind, can't join the trend. So every day they see literally the biggest companies in the world gapping up 5% a day. They could be long that trend and they'd be loving it. Meanwhile, they just keep screaming bubble. Also, IREN, another headline play today, selling off a little bit right now, but they had this morning was up 18% on a $9.7 billion multi-year cloud contract with Microsoft. This stock has been on an absolute tear all year. You go back to spring, really Liberation Day. I remember I was at the New York Stock Exchange about a week after Liberation Day. Stocks, let me bring it up on the S&P. Let me bring up the 1 year of the S&P. And, basically right there was post Liberation Day. I was live at the NYSE right there and said, buy the dip, baby. And look at where we've been since then. And IREN was one of those stocks that all the way back, even in April, people were like, no upside, big deal, whatever, $5 to $75 this morning. Now, kind of struggling to break out right here, but a lot of this news, especially these billion-dollar contracts, it does take time to play off. So look for this thing to push back through that 77 major resistance level there. That being said, we're green across all the AI and cloud names. Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, the heat map, the AI heat map was throbbing green and still green. And that being said, I know it's kind of redundant, but Microsoft, another name, gapped up this morning, kind of going back sideways right now, but retested the 52-week highs, crushing it in AI. Satya Nadella, their CEO, crushing it. Look for, basically what I would do with Microsoft, set alerts, at that double top area. You can see it on my chart. We push back through that. I think a lot of these stocks can come back, and you'll look back and you'll look at the runs this year. I think next year could eclipse that. And the last one's Palantir. A lot of you guys know I've been pounding the desk on Palantir since the mid-20s. It ripped up late last year, and I was like, this thing's going to do 100 plus. Blew through 100. I'm like, well, at this point, it's probably 200. And then it ran up towards 200. And then back here in August is when Citron, Andrew left, all the short sellers swooped in after that 3-day sell-off. It consolidated and then broke back out. Here we are at 200 plus. And listen, be smart. Look for weak open ready greens. Look for dip buys. But at this point, this company, when it comes to software, most of you hear about all the hardware plays, but when it comes to software and infrastructure, Palantir just absolutely crushing it. They have the best stack across the board in AI. Like I said, look for dips, look for pullbacks, but I think I could be doing a similar video to this 6 months from now, and I'll be like, Palantir's at 300. So that is most of the headlines hitting today. Obviously just recapping, AI leading the way. Now listen, when it comes to a bubble is just a bull market you're not participating in, listen, at some point, these stocks are gonna cool off, okay? But I don't see it at any point in the first 6 months. So be smart, don't hold losers. If you have a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% gain, you'll never go broke taking profits. Maybe scale out, keep small positions in some of these names and let them work. But I think we're at least 6 months before this AI sector cools off. And everybody's been calling it a bubble since Liberation Day. So we're 6 months in. I think we got basically up until spring this year before and at that point, now remember, I'm not saying a hard sell-off. I'm just saying they'll probably fall back into consolidation mode where they just kind of chop sideways for a while before the next leg up. All right, guys, have a great week. By the way, always remember to check out the Sunday night YouTube live. Had a great one last night. Really enjoyed it on Sunday night. About 45 minutes to an hour, talking trade ideas, talking strategy. The market's closed, so a lot of times I really talk about mentality, etc. So make sure to hit those lives, ring the bell on your channel so you get notified when I go live, when Bryce, when Matt. We have an entire team here at StocksToTrade, different viewpoints, different approaches. Make sure you got those notifications on, and we'll see you next time, my friends.